We're back. Here we discuss how to set up File Explorer, and we look at the menu options when you click on a drive, directory, or a file. Then we demonstrate how to set up the directory structure for your application. There is a useful place to set up File Explorer options, Control Panel, and File Explorer options. If Control Panel is not on your desktop, go to the tablet side, expand the application list, and scroll down to Windows System. Click on the caret, and there you'll see Control Panel. Or an alternative is just to go to the tablet session and start typing CON, and there you are, Control Panel. I just noticed that Control Panel might look different to you when you bring it up. You might see something like this, in which case you can go over to the View By and select Small Icons, and now you'll see the version that we were talking about in the lecture. So we get to the Control Panel and the File Explorer options. Under the General tab, make sure Open each folder in the same window and double-click to open an item are both selected and everything else is not selected. Under the View tab, make sure these choices are selected. Display the full path in the title bar. Show drive letters. And show status bar. And make sure these choices are not selected. Hide extensions for known file types and use checkboxes to select items. The rest I don't much care about one way or the other, then click OK. In File Explorer, if you double-click on a file name, Windows tries to determine what kind of data is in the file, and therefore what program should be launched to work with the data. Windows makes this determination based on the extension for the file name. For example, if it sees some name.txt, Windows chooses to launch Notepad and passes this file name to Notepad to work on. But you can change the program selection so that if Windows sees certain extensions, it will launch a different program than it would ordinarily use. Usually the default selections Windows makes are fine, but sometimes you want to work with different assumptions, or you just might want to verify the current selections are right for you. Once again, we visit Control Panel. This time we select Default Programs, and then associate a file type or protocol with the program. It takes a while to populate the list, and here we see an alphabetical list of file name extensions that might have some program tied to it. And here's another variation of Windows I encountered. From the Control Panel, you can go to Default Programs, and now associate a file type or protocol with a program, and it looks different here. And you have to scroll down to get to Choose Default Apps by File Type. Then the content is the same, although the look and feel is a little bit different. There we go. So the idea coming forward is the same. Note that special characters and numbers sort before letters. Also note that some extensions have Unknown Application next to them. This means that no default program is set up to run when file names with these extensions are double-clicked from File Explorer. Also, note you might have a different list. When you install applications, they often add entries to the list. Now here are the extensions I think you should pay attention to at this point. First is ASCII. That should be tied to Notepad. Then BMP should be tied to Paint. And by the way, if the program that's tied to an extension isn't what you want, you can simply click on Change Program and you get a list of programs to choose from, and you can choose that and it will update the list. Okay, so we have ASCII and BMP. Next, I want to find CSS, which is style sheets for web pages, and tie that to Notepad. Then HTML and HTML should both be tied to your favorite browser. I use Firefox, but of course there's lots of browsers to choose from, so make sure your browser is the program set for HTML and HTML. Next, JS for JavaScript. Make sure that's tied to Notepad. Also, log files should be tied to Notepad. And PDF, which we use a lot, should be tied to the Adobe Acrobat Reader DC. PHP is a programming language we use in the 3rd class, and it should be tied to Notepad. Then PNG tied to Paint. RTF, rich text format, should be tied to WordPad. SHTML should be associated with your browser again. And finally, TXT should, of course, be set to Notepad. So those are the selections I recommend. Everything else doesn't matter at this point, and we can make changes later on. Next, we'll look at the menus available when you right-click a drive, a directory, or a file name from File Explorer. Right-clicking a drive gives this menu. Notice that Expand is bold. This tells us that if you had left-clicked, you would have gotten the default action of Expand. That is, show the next level deep of directories. Be very careful here. For day-to-day work, the only option you care about aside from Expand is New, which then always pops up a single choice of Folder. If you left-click on this, then Windows expands the directory list and sets up a folder named New Folder, which you can rename right then and there. And in fact, this is how you create your first-level directories. If you right-click on a directory, you get the same menu as for a drive, except you don't have the Format option, and you have new options Copy and Delete. If there are no subdirectories, the Expand option is grayed out. Notice you can rename a directory using this menu. You can also click New and create a subdirectory. You can also delete a directory, which deletes all files and subdirectories within that directory. You do not get a warning message. However, the directory and its files and subdirectories are actually sent to the recycle bin, and they can be reclaimed as long as you do not empty the recycle bin. If you create a directory with the same name as an existing directory, then the new directory will have the same name followed by parenthesis 2, parenthesis, and so on. If you select the Copy option, the directory and all its files will be placed into the clipboard. If you then right-click a different directory, you will have a new menu choice, Paste. If you select Paste, the contents of the clipboard are pasted into the directory, and they remain in the clipboard until you put something else in there. The original directory remains, so now you have 2 copies. If you select the Cut option, the action is the same as with Copy, except that when you paste, the original directory is deleted. The copy remains in the clipboard, and of course the directory where you pasted the data still has it. The clipboard is a conceptual place for holding files. There is only one clipboard, so cutting or copying something replaces whatever might have been in the clipboard already. Now, if you right-click on a file name, you get a menu like this. Notice that file names only show in the content pane. Notice again the boldface choice, Open. This is the default action if you were to double-click. Windows would launch the related application program and pass the file name to it. Sometimes that's fine, but sometimes I want to open a file with a non-default application. For example, in the second course, when we create web pages, I want to open a web page with Notepad to develop the page, but I want to open it with my browser to view the page. So that's what the Open With option is for. If you choose that, you get a list of possible applications to select from for processing the file. The other options that I frequently use from this menu are Cut, Copy, Delete, and Rename, all of which should be evident what they do. Finally, we've been focusing on the magic of using right-click because most people forget to use that. But what happens when you left-click in the navigation pane of File Explorer? Well, the default action is taken. On a drive, if you left-click the drive name, the directories on the drive are shown in the Content pane. If you left-click on the caret next to the drive name, the directories on the drive are listed in the navigation pane. On a directory name, if there are no subdirectories, the file names in this directory are listed in the Content pane. If there are subdirectories, clicking on the directory name displays the names of subdirectories and files in the Content pane, and clicking on the caret displays the subdirectories in the navigation pane. On a file name, and this is only done in the Content pane, a double-click invokes the default application. If no default application is assigned, a pop-up menu displays asking, how do you want to open this file, with a list of suggested applications. To wrap up this video, I'll demonstrate setting up a small directory structure for a new business that will be doing small group trip planning. Say our home directory is to be called Travel with Friends. So new folder, Travel with Friends. The directory will hold documents I find or create that will help me in my work. And it will have a subdirectory for electronic documents related to the business side of the business. So I'll have a new directory, and I'll call it Business Docs. And there'll be a subdirectory for each client that might contain signed agreements, proposals, researches, and so forth. So here I will do folder, and I'll just call it Client 1. And of course, create as many of those as I need. And then there'll be a subdirectory perhaps for each trip, which might contain lists of links to related websites, pictures from the destinations or the travelers, cultural information, and so on. So again, right-click the directory, new folder, and I'll call it Trip 1. It's because he's brilliant with names. So now we have a directory, Travel with Friends, with 3 subdirectories, and in part 3 of this session, we explore various ways to get files into directories. See you there.